the way the issues by the public sector's offers are subscribed is quite encouraging, that the market has the appetite to absorb it. These are the good sides. But there are certain problems also for the overall growth. That's why I have kept it at the GDP level. When I was asked, and while presenting the situation of Indian economy, there too also I pointed out that I am optimistic of about 7%, 6% plus. But what would be the exact figure, that I am to make a hard assessment about the impact of lack of rains for some period of time, and surplus, rather more than surplus rains at some other point of time, and what has been the impact on the agricultural production. Now suppose if agricultural production is more than 2.5%, annual agricultural production comes, then surely our GDP will substantially step up. Management of the food grains will also be easier. Other agricultural commodities will be easier. One or two problem areas would be there, but still it would be manageable.
Food inflation seems to be one of the key concerns as far as this government is concerned at this point in time. The food index, inflation index over 15%. There is very little that you can actually do given the drought situation. Import, of course, is also an option as far as some commodities are concerned. How concerned are you about food inflation at this point in time?
No, food is a primary, essentially an area of concern because it affects the life of everybody. Therefore, we are having this system of daily monitoring. For instance, 2 days, about 17 commodities which we are monitoring, starting from rice to last one is onion. There we found that since yesterday on 6 items prices have been slightly less. On 6 items prices have gone up. On 5 items prices are exactly equal as it was yesterday per kg. Therefore, this is an area of concern. But so far cereals are concerned, rice and wheat, we have adequate stock. Therefore, there would be no problem so far supply is concerned. Supply constraint can be taken care of. But for that, and we have already requested the state government to revamp their public distribution outlay through which we can provide the subsidized wheat and rice to the vulnerable sections of the society. And through the market mechanism we can provide the adequate availability in the market. Secondly, the import doors are also open on pulses, on edible oil, on sugar. We have allowed the import and we have put it on OGL. Large number of items are put with zero duty. Therefore, supply mechanism and demand mechanism, by maintaining those, we are ensuring that the adverse impact of high price rise is mitigated to the extent possible.
Are you confident, sir, that the measures that you are taking at this point in time will help contain food inflation at these levels?
It will be possible because always there is a seasonal factor. This is the time when the food items grow, and it is affected by drought, it is affected to some extent by floods, particularly fruits, vegetables, milk. These are to a considerable extent are impacted as a result of the seasonal factors. And I do hope that after the festive seasons are being over, or that means after Diwali, things will stabilize.
So from food inflation, let me move now to inflation, because that is also another challenge, and it's a tightrope act that the government has actually got to follow on the inflation front. The projection seems to be that by March you could hover around that 5% forecast of the Reserve Bank, or even perhaps cross it and touch 6%. Is inflation your key concern at this point? Battling inflation your key concern? And if you cannot control food inflation, what really do you do about this problem?
Inflation is always a matter of area of concern to all policymakers, and particularly to the finance ministers of the country, because it affects the vulnerable section most. Those sections who are indexed and their net allowances increase, and it is adjusted. Partly it is mitigated.
Right.
But those who are outside that mechanism, they suffer most. Therefore, it is essential. And for them, as I mentioned to you, the available supply of essential commodities at the subsidized price through public distribution systems is one of the instruments. Therefore, we shall have to do that. So, far WPI is concerned, I am apprehensive that it may be around 5 to 6% at the end of the year. It may go up to that, because the statistical advantage which we had, the negative rate of inflation, is no longer relevant.
Right.
Because you shall have to keep in mind that I am giving you just the example of one commodity. Last year there was a fluctuations of the commodity prices on the higher side, which contributed substantially to the inflationary pressure, which was built up, and at one point of time it reached as high as 13 to 14%. Because in the month of August last year, the prices of oil reached $147 per barrel.
Absolutely.
Therefore, today it is not that. I think day before yesterday I saw it.
It's hovering around the $70 mark. Yesterday it climbed back about 70, otherwise it's about 68.
Therefore, that type of things will have its reflections, but nonetheless, if it goes beyond that, it will be difficult. At the same time, the stimulus which we have provided, as a result of which adequate liquidity is being made available for the prospective investors, I cannot suddenly withdraw that. Therefore, this is exactly what you have said. It is a tightrope walking.
That's right.
But this we shall have to do and maintain the balance.
Let me move on to another point that you actually talked about, and that was the appetite in the market as far as public issues from the government was concerned, NHPC and Oil India. There is a feeling that perhaps not enough was left on the table. What is the feedback that you actually got on these two issues? And then let me ask you a broader question as far as the disinvestment blueprint is concerned.
The response was overwhelming, and as a result of that, the value of the companies have increased substantially. In case of Oil India, I think it is almost 124% after the 10% IPO and 10% disinvestment. And NHPC, it is almost like 96-97% before the disinvestment, and after the disinvestment, the market value of the company has increased substantially.
So what more can we actually see, sir? We understand that the disinvestment roadmap is ready and it's only a matter of cabinet approval.
I must tell you here, I want to have a little bit cautious approach. I am deciding as and when the decision is being taken in the cabinet. But I am avoiding premature announcement. And one point of time I said that I do not like the idea that finance minister of the country will reel out the list of the public sector companies of
that would be unfair of me to ask you to read out the list of companies that you're looking at disinvesting, so I won't do that. But can you at least tell us what the broad contours are of this disinvestment roadmap, sir? And by the end of the fiscal, how many we could see?
I will bring out a paper in the cabinet, and after that, when the cabinet will approve it, I will spell it out.
How soon will we actually?
Very soon.
And so, just a broad indication really, in terms of a target that you actually hope.
You know, I am not any fixed target.
Right.
Only one target I am having, that it must be market's appetite should not be overfed. Timing should be appropriate. And this is a process which is continuing. Decision should be taken. Decision should be made available. My Department of Disinvestment is in touch with all the ministries. Proposals are coming. We are working on it, and it is a continuing exercise. Broad parameter of the policy we have spelled out in the presidential address. First, then again in my budget speech. And thirdly, when I articulated after the parliament session was over, in my interaction with the various chambers of commerce and industry. And therefore the broad parameter is there. And certain other policy matters, I am shortly going to take a paper to the cabinet, and after the cabinet's approval I will spell it out.
So direct tax collections, as per the latest figures, up by about 4% or so. Service tax is pretty much stagnant. Customs excise lagging. What is the situation, sir, in terms of...
So far the direct taxes are concerned, there has been modest growth. But I am not quite sure whether we will be able to reach the revised target which I have fixed for the direct tax people, but budgetary target we will be able to.
So you'll meet the BE but not the RE?
No, I will be able to reach the budgetary target,
right.
But what I told them at the RE, BE will be little more than BE,
okay,
not less than BE, but okay. I gave an additional target of 30,000 crores rupees to be added to the BE in the conference of the Chief Commissioners of Income Tax. I am little skeptical, not skeptical, I am seeing that how far we are able to reach that figure. There will be some improvement from the BE. So far direct taxes are concerned, but the indirect taxes, unless there is a robust recovery in the manufacturing sector and international trade, then it would be difficult to have the robust growth in the collections of the Central Excise and Customs.
Right. Before we actually say goodbye to you, Mr. Mukherjee, let me ask you, sir, what to your mind seems to be the critical challenge at this point in time, and what will be the priority? Is the priority driving consumption and investment, or is the priority at this point trying to battle inflationary pressures? What is the priority?
Look, what did I do in the budget? I took tremendous risk when I stepped up the developmental outlay by one go to the extent of 40,000 crores of rupees, from 2,85,000 crores to 3,25,000 crores, almost 39%. When I stepped up substantial outlay for the rural sector with the hope of generating demand in the rural sector to support the industry and manufacturing activities, that growth is to be restored. Growth trajectory is to be restored. But at the same time, I put a word of caution that this level of fiscal deficit cannot be sustainable over a longer period of time. Within medium term, 2 to 3 years, we shall have to come back to the fiscal prudence.
Right.
Therefore, I have clearly set out my priorities and objectives, and that is to be implemented within the prescribed limit. What I have done in 2009-10 budget, what I can do in 2010-11 budget when I will be presenting it, what I can do in the budget of 2011-12, these are the 3 years period we had, within which we shall have to come back to the normal fiscal deficit and fiscal prudence. So depending on the situation prevailing right at that point of time, we shall have to work it out.
All right, so my final question to you for Pranab Mukherjee as Finance Minister, what is enemy number one at this point, sir?
We must have growth, and growth with the employment generation, and as far as possible in a non-inflationary way. Jobless growth is not my objective, and highly inflationary growth is also not my objective. I would like to strike a balance.